We believe. In 2007, the Warriors finished the regular season with a 41-41 record, barely scraping into the 8th seed in the Western Conference. No one believed they would survive the first round. Their opponents were the 67-win Dallas Mavericks, who were not only the best team in the league that year, but also the home of newly crowned MVP Dirk Nowitzki. Betting odds for the Warriors soared to 20-1, and the media and commentators almost unanimously predicted a Mavericks sweep. Yet, to everyone's surprise, the Mavericks, who had beaten the Warriors 3-0 in the regular season, found themselves dominated in the playoffs. Warriors coach Don Nelson, a former Mavericks coach, knew Nowitzki's habits inside and out. He used a small ball lineup to stretch the floor, forcing the Mavericks to constantly adjust. Throughout the series, the Warriors averaged 14 more three-point attempts per game than the Mavericks, completely controlling the pace. Baron Davis became the face of the "We Believe" upset, averaging over 22 points per game and delivering an iconic dunk over Andrei Kirilenko in Game 3 that has since become a legendary moment in franchise history. The Mad Dog frontcourt of Steven Jackson, Matt Barnes, and Monta Ellis used relentless switching defense to completely disrupt the Mavericks' rhythm. In the final game, the Warriors won by 25 points, and Oracle Arena erupted like an earthquake. This marked the first time in NBA history that an 8th seed had defeated a first seed in a 7-game series, making the Black 8 upset a real possibility. Incidentally, the Mavericks' 67 wins were the third highest in league history. But this was just the beginning of the Black 8 story, as a decade later, another top seed fell to a shocking injury. Derek Who. In 2012, the Eastern Conference's top-seeded Chicago Bulls led the league with a 50-16 record. Their star, Derrick Rose, was a reigning MVP, and team morale was high. Their first-round opponent was the 8th-seeded Philadelphia 76ers, a team that ranked third to last in the league in scoring, with a one-dimensional offense that made them look like an easy out. However, with less than 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter of Game 1, Rose landed awkwardly on a routine drive and tore his left ACL. His fall single-handedly derailed the team's offensive and defensive rhythm. Without Rose, the Bulls' scoring average dropped by more than 10 points, and their defense lost its most aggressive helper. The 76ers, fueled by Andre Iguodala's steady play and a slump from Luol Deng, went on to win 3 straight games to take the series. They completed the 4-2 upset, becoming the 5th team in NBA history to successfully pull off a Black 8. The most ironic part was that the Bulls' series-ending loss came at home in the United Center, with Chicago fans leaving early. Rose's injury not only changed the series, but also indirectly ended the Bulls' rebuilding process. They never reached that height again. And in the following years, the West would see its own version of a legendary upset. Lob City Falls. In the first round of the 2021 playoffs, the 4th-seeded Clippers faced the 5th-seeded Mavericks and were immediately stunned. They lost the first 2 games at home, as Luka Doncic's explosive performance caught them completely off guard. Down 0-2, the Clippers were universally counted out, especially after being embarrassed at home in Los Angeles. But coach Tyronn Lue changed his strategy. In Game 3, he gave up home court advantage, compressed the interior rotation, and turned the game into a perimeter slugfest. With a strategy of endless switching and abandoning double teams, he gambled on Doncic's physical limits. Starting in Game 3, the two teams engaged in the most bizarre home and away series in history. Every game was won by the road team, and the deciding Game 7 was no exception. Kawhi Leonard scored 45 points on 72% shooting in Game 6 to keep the Clippers alive. In Game 7, he added 28 points, 10 rebounds, and 0 turnovers to single-handedly pry the series away. This made the 2021 series the first in NBA history where all 7 games were won by the visiting team. Although Doncic averaged 35 points, 8 rebounds, and 10 assists, the Mavericks' overall roster couldn't sustain the second-half intensity. The Clippers completed the comeback, but what was even more surprising happened in the very next season, when another contender completely collapsed. Suns collapse. In 2022, the Suns finished with a 64-18 record, the best in the entire league and the best in franchise history. They were a well-oiled machine on both ends of the floor and sailed through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. In the Western Conference semifinals against the Mavericks, the series went to a deciding Game 7, and the whole world expected the Suns to close it out at home. Instead, they suffered a catastrophic start, scoring just 27 points in the first half, the lowest of any team in the playoffs that year. Chris Paul scored only 4 points all game, completely outmatched by Doncic, and Devin Booker's cold shooting made him almost invisible. On the other side, Doncic scored 27 points in the first 2 quarters alone, dismantling the Suns on offense and defense. With every point he scored, the cameras panned to the Suns' home crowd, whose faces seemed to accept defeat in advance. The final score was 123-90, a 33-point loss that stands as one of the most embarrassing Game 7 defeats in NBA history. Post-game analysis revealed that the Suns were once down by 46 points before the third quarter, a deficit that went beyond any tactical discussion. Doncic's image of smiling while scoring became one of the most humiliating moments in Suns history. This total collapse also cast a dark shadow over the Suns' championship window because the Mavericks were a team that no one thought would make it that far, and the first ever Black 8 upset was the ultimate underdog story. Denver 1994. The first round of the 1994 playoffs pitted the 63-win first-seeded Supersonics against the 42-win 8th-seeded Nuggets. The series looked like a one-sided affair. Seattle had the most explosive duo in the league with Gary Payton's defense and Shawn Kemp's thunderous dunks, and they took a commanding 2-0 lead. But once the series shifted to Denver, the young Nuggets found their rhythm. Coach Dan Issel relied on the twin towers of Dikembe Mutombo and LaFonso Ellis, combined with the intensity of Ellis and Robert Pack, to grind out points. In Game 4, the Nuggets went on a 28-10 run in the fourth quarter to tie the series. In Game 5, in Seattle's home arena, Mutombo grabbed 15 rebounds and blocked 8 shots, using his defense to drag the game into a final 2-minute battle. After his final block, he fell to the ground, clutching the ball and laughing, creating one of the most classic images in NBA playoff history. This was the first time an 8th seed had defeated a first seed in the NBA, and to come back after losing the first 2 games of a 5-game series was an almost impossible feat, Mutombo later said. Nobody believed we could win, but we did. This victory not only changed Nuggets history, but also changed the league's perception of the Black 8. Upset, it was no longer just a matter of probability, but a convergence of strategy, will, and timing. Years later, a moment of magic in a different series would make a sharpshooter a legend. Miller time. In the 1995 Eastern Conference semifinals, the Indiana Pacers squared off against their rivals, the New York Knicks, in a series that was heated from the start. In the final 8.9 seconds of Game 1 at Madison Square Garden, Reggie Miller performed a miracle. He hit 2 3-pointers to tie the game, stole the ball, and hit 2 free throws to take the lead, scoring 8 points to complete an incredible comeback. Those 8 seconds not only stunned the Knicks, but silenced the entire arena, all except for one person, Spike Lee. The celebrity Knicks fan had been trash-talking Miller from his courtside seat, only to be met with a series of throat-slashing gestures. Throughout the series, Miller averaged 25.5 points per game and seemed to take over in the clutch every night. He constantly created space in the fourth quarter, hitting jumpers with pinpoint accuracy, and the Knicks had no one who could stop him. In a tense Game 7 in New York, Patrick Ewing missed a crucial shot at the end, while Miller calmly hit the game winner to send the Pacers to the Eastern Conference Finals. Afterward, he famously said, "I didn't just win the game, I won their faces." This series solidified Miller's legendary status and became one of the most iconic rivalries of the 90s. And 6 years later, a future MVP would complete his own revenge story to win his first championship. Dirk revenge. In the 2011 Finals, the Mavericks faced the unstoppable Heat, Big Three, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. In their first year together, they had dominated their way to the finals and were seen as the league's new superpower for years to come. The media's prediction was overwhelmingly in favor of the Heat, who had 3 All-Stars, while the Mavericks had only Dirk Nowitzki, who was an All-Star that year. But this was a team without superstar glitter, and they used the most composed approach in the finals, painstakingly deconstructing the Heat's rhythm one game at a time. The Mavericks relied on tough rotations, accurate three-point shooting, and veteran execution to control the pace of the game. Nowitzki had the most determined series of his career, averaging 26 points and 9 rebounds. In the clutch moments of the fourth quarter, he seemed to take over almost every game, playing through a fever, hitting his signature fadeaway, and driving to the basket all became iconic images from that year. On the other hand, LeBron James scored only 8 points in Game 4, his lowest finals output, and disappeared in the fourth quarter, leading to intense media criticism of his clutch ability. The Mavericks ultimately defeated the Heat 4-2 to win the franchise's only championship, exorcising the demons of their 2006 finals loss. Afterward, Nowitzki didn't celebrate. Walking straight into the locker room, it wasn't indifference, but the release of 5 years of pent-up anguish. This victory was more than a Cinderella story, it was a reversal of memory and belief. Yet a few years earlier, another super team met its demise at the hands of a true team. Pistons 2004. In the 2004 NBA Finals, nearly everyone was waiting for the Lakers to be crowned champions. Kobe and Shaq were the most dominant duo in the league, and with veterans Karl Malone and Gary Payton, their super team seemed unstoppable. Betting odds, expert predictions, and media discussions were all one-sided. No one gave the Detroit Pistons a chance. But when the games began, the Lakers ran headfirst into the wall of a defense-first city. The Pistons ended the series in 5 games, holding the Lakers to an astonishing average of just 81.8 points per game, with a defensive intensity that seemed to change the rules. Ben Wallace held down the paint, averaging 12.4 rebounds and 2 blocks, limiting Shaquille O'Neal's space to catch the ball. The entire team rotated meticulously, with no one averaging over 21 points per game, but everyone contributing. The finals MVP went to Chauncey Billups, a point guard who averaged less than 17 points for the season, but calmly controlled the pace of the series and made almost no mistakes in the clutch. This championship not only shattered the Lakers' dynasty dreams, but also broke finals viewership records, becoming one of the most unexpected upsets of the 21st century. With no superstars, no flash, they won on the strength of their system and execution, establishing a new template for the Wolf Pack style of basketball. Many years later, an underdog in the East would pull off a similar stunning upset. Heat 2023. In 2023, the Heat lost their first play-in game to the Hawks, barely squeezing into the playoffs as the Eastern Conference's 8th seed after a final winner-take-all game. No one gave them a chance, especially since their first-round opponent was the 58-win, first-seeded Milwaukee Bucks, which was seen as a guaranteed early exit. But Jimmy Butler didn't follow the script. He exploded for 56 points in Game 4 to lead the team to a comeback victory and set a franchise playoff scoring record. He averaged 37.6 points for the series, tearing apart Giannis Antetokounmpo and the league's best defense en route to a shocking 4-1 upset. In the Eastern Conference semifinals, the Heat's team defense and role players' hot shooting carried them forward. They then battled the Boston Celtics in a grueling 7-game series in the Eastern Conference Finals, ultimately winning with a clutch fourth-quarter performance from Butler to punch their ticket to the finals. He averaged 27 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists for the series, and his clutch shots earned him the official label of Playoff Jimmy. They became the second 8th seed in NBA history to reach the finals, continuing the improbable narrative that seed numbered destiny. This miracle run was built not on talent, but on pure survival instincts. It was an unprecedented underdog story in an era of advanced offense, and another young team from a few years earlier had also used their own surprise run to make a statement. Hawks 2021. In 2021, the Atlanta Hawks were only the 5th seed in the East, but they had a top 5 offensive rating, a young roster, and no fear of the big stage. In the first round against the Knicks, Trae Young scored 32 points in Game 1 at Madison Square Garden, hitting a game-winning floater and then shushing the crowd, a moment that went viral. He averaged 29 points and 9 assists for the series, completely disrupting the Knicks' offense and defense and leading the Hawks to a 4-1 series victory. In the semifinals, they faced the 76ers, who were built around Joel Embiid and had one of the best defenses in the league. The Hawks came back from 0-1 and 2-3 deficits to win the series, and Young cemented his legacy by scoring 21 points and 10 assists in a high-pressure Game 7. He averaged 29 points and 10 assists for the entire series, becoming only the second guard in franchise history to average a playoff double-double, the first being Doc Rivers in 1989. Ice Trae became a fan favorite, and his taunts, cold smiles, and three-pointers became popular memes. They didn't make the finals, but they made everyone realize that this young team was no longer just a participant. And speaking of an 8th seed making the finals, the 1999 Knicks were the original example. Knicks 1999. The 1999 season was one of the strangest in NBA history due to a labor dispute that shortened the regular season to just 50 games. The Knicks only just made it into the playoffs as the 8th seed with a 4-game winning streak. In the first round, they faced the Heat, and in a crucial Game 5, Allen Houston hit a running floater with no time left to win the series. The ball bounced twice on the rim before going in, a moment etched into the memory of MSG. They then swept the Hawks, and in the semifinals, Larry Johnson's 4-point play and Marcus Camby's blocks took them to the next level. In the Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers, Houston once again sealed the deal in Game 6, and the Knicks became the first 8th seed in NBA history to reach the finals. Although they ultimately lost to Tim Duncan and the Spurs, their entire playoff run was a miracle, with almost every game coming down to a buzzer beater, a crucial block, or a tense Game 7. This team, without a superstar, wrote a miraculous chapter through toughness and defense. That year, the Black Eight concept truly entered the mainstream, and the New York spirit lives on in the hearts of fans to this day. 12 years later, another small market team used a similar approach to forge their own identity. Grit and grind. In 2011, the Memphis Grizzlies finished with a 46-win season to secure the 8th seed in the West. Their first-round opponent was the 61-win San Antonio Spurs, and no one gave them a chance. But this team had its own unique way of surviving. They were top 5 in the league in points allowed and dead last in offensive pace. They played the most basic, direct form of basketball defense, rebounding, and grinding down the tempo until their opponents collapsed. In Game 1 of the first round, Zach Randolph's three-quarter surge of 25 points and 14 rebounds gave the Grizzlies their first ever playoff win. They then won 2 more at home to complete the 4-2 Black 8 upset. Throughout the series, Randolph averaged 21 points and 9 rebounds, forcing Tim Duncan to the perimeter. Marc Gasol, as a playmaking center, averaged 3.6 assists, completely disrupting the Spurs' rhythm. Coach Lionel Hollins even said, "We don't want to get fast, we want you to get slow with us." This became the unofficial motto of the grit and grind era. This victory was not only the Grizzlies' first ever playoff series win, but also the formal rise of tough guy basketball. With no superstars or high draft picks, they relied on unity and grit, forcing the league to re-evaluate the tactical importance of diverse styles of play. But in the years that followed, one of the greatest individual performances would define a series. Sixers 2001. In the first game of the 2001 NBA Finals, the 76ers faced the defending champion Lakers, who were on an 11-game playoff winning streak. The Lakers had swept the Blazers, Kings, and Spurs, winning by an average margin of 12 points, and no team seemed capable of challenging them. But in Los Angeles' Staples Center, 6-foot guard Allen Iverson used a 48-point performance to single-handedly bring the Lakers back down to earth. That night, he played all but a few minutes of the game, holding his own against the combined force of Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Thanks to his explosive scoring, the 76ers won the game 107-101, a victory no one expected, and ended the Lakers' perfect playoff record. The most memorable moment came with 47 seconds left in overtime, when Iverson hit a step-back jumper from the baseline to extend the 76ers' lead to 103-99. After landing, he famously stepped over a fallen Tyronn Lue, a moment that became immortalized in history. The gesture was not only a taunt to the Lakers' defense, but a defiant reply to all the critics. After the game, Lakers coach Phil Jackson admitted that they hadn't anticipated Iverson would take over the game in such a manner. Because of that iconic step over, this game went from a simple upset to one of the most classic moments in NBA history. Although the Lakers ultimately won the finals 4-1, the significance of Game 1 transcended the final outcome. It was the most representative performance of Iverson's career and the perfect footnote for that determined 76ers team. That night, AI not only played the entire game, but also proved with his heart and grit that a small guard could dominate on the final stage. And years later, another superstar would deliver a legendary performance to secure a huge Game 7 victory. Warriors 2023. In the first round of the 2023 playoffs, the sixth-seeded Warriors faced the third-seeded Kings. Sacramento had a 26-15 home record in the league's best offense, centered around the dynamic pick and roll of their young stars, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. The series was tied heading into Game 7, and the Warriors' title defense was on the line. In that decisive game, 35-year-old Stephen Curry scored 50 points, setting a new NBA record for most points in a Game 7. With 8 rebounds and 6 assists, he almost single-handedly shattered the Kings' home court advantage. Thanks to his explosion, the Warriors won 120-100 and continued their tradition of clutch playoff performances. The Warriors' tactical plan against the Kings was crystal clear. They relentlessly double-teamed Fox to cut off the primary ball handler and dared Sabonis to shoot from mid-range. This defensive choice forced the Kings' outside shooters into a slump, while the Warriors capitalized with fast break points. Curry shot 20 for 38 from the field and 7 for 14 from 3, hitting multiple deep threes in the clutch and completely breaking down the Kings' defense. The Kings, who averaged 121.3 points at home that season, only scored 100 in this game, a testament to the success of the Warriors' defensive strategy. And by the way, leaving Sabonis open was more effective than many people thought. All of this created the perfect storm for Curry's scoring outburst, allowing the Warriors to pull away in the second half. While not a historical Black 8 upset, the performance was no less explosive. For an aging dynasty that had just won a championship the previous season, this victory felt like a final roar. Curry's 50 points were not only a new playoff career high, but also made him the first player in NBA history to score 50 in a Game 7. On this night, he once again put the Warriors' championship pedigree on full display. However, this win couldn't hide the fact that the Warriors' roster was aging, and questions about how much longer their dynasty would last were beginning to emerge. This one led to a different kind of playoff run, where a low seed found a legendary path to a championship. Rockets 1995. In 1995, the Houston Rockets entered the playoffs as the sixth seed in the Western Conference with no home court advantage and low expectations. In the first round, they faced the 60-win Utah Jazz, led by the duo of John Stockton and Karl Malone. When the series went to a decisive Game 5, the Rockets, fueled by the steady play of Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, won 95-91 on the road to advance. In the next round, against the 57-win Phoenix Suns, the Rockets came back from a 1-3 deficit to win 3 straight, barely escaping Game 7 with a 115-114 victory on the road. Incidentally, this was one of the few 1-3 comebacks in NBA history at the time. In just 2 rounds, they had already defeated the top 2 seeds in the West. In the Western Conference Finals, the Rockets faced the San Antonio Spurs, led by regular season MVP David Robinson. This series became Hakeem Olajuwon's personal showcase, as he averaged 35.3 points, 12.5 rebounds, and 4.2 blocks, completely dominating Robinson. Most importantly, his 39-point, 11-rebound performance in Game 1 shattered the Spurs' confidence, and the Rockets went on to sweep them in 4 straight. Robinson admitted afterward that Olajuwon's footwork and offensive moves were almost impossible to predict. Because of his commanding performance in this series, the Dream was universally hailed as the best center in the league, and his name was already being written on the Finals MVP trophy. In the Finals, the Rockets defeated the Eastern Conference champion Orlando Magic 4-0, completing their legendary journey from a 6th seed to a champion. This team defeated the top 3 seeds in the Western Conference consecutively, making it one of the most hard-fought underdog stories in history. Olajuwon was not only the Finals MVP, but also the decisive force throughout the entire playoffs. His averages of 33 points, 10.3 rebounds, and 4.5 assists made it clear that the championship was won not just on talent, but on will and execution. That year, The Rockets proved that the playoffs are not a continuation of regular season rankings, but an entirely different game of survival. And in the following years, another dynasty was about to begin. Spurs 1999. The 1999 season was one of the most unique in NBA history, as a labor dispute shortened the regular season to just 50 games. The San Antonio Spurs had the league's best record at 37-13 in this condensed schedule, but outsiders still doubted their dominance. That year, the league was more focused on the Lakers' O'Neal-Kobe duo and the chaos in the East after Michael Jordan's retirement, rather than this team that relied on defense and a Twin Towers frontcourt. But once the playoffs began, the Spurs used a series of victories to prove their consistency and lethality. The compact schedule and intense pace of the season meant that maintaining health and execution became their biggest advantage on the road to the championship. In the first round, the Spurs defeated the Timberwolves 3-1. In the Western Conference semifinals, they faced the Lakers with O'Neal and Bryant, but swept them 4-0, winning by an average margin of 15 points and giving them no chance to fight back. In the Western Conference Finals, they once again swept the Blazers, who had Rasheed Wallace and Steve Smith. This Spurs team lost only one game in their first 12 playoff games, showcasing an unprecedented level of cold-blooded efficiency. In his rookie contract, Tim Duncan delivered a finals performance of 23.2 points, 11.5 rebounds, and 2.6 blocks, completely taking over the paint and showing everyone that he was on his way to becoming a top player for the next decade. In the finals, the Spurs faced the Black Eight Miracle Knicks. The Knicks had defeated the Heat, Hawks, and Pacers, but they were no match for the Twin Towers of David Robinson and Duncan. Duncan averaged 27.4 points and 14 rebounds in the finals, winning MVP and leading the Spurs to their first championship in a 4-1 series victory. At that moment, the stage was set for the Big Three dynasty to begin, and although Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili had yet to join, the core philosophy and championship DNA of the Spurs were already in place. The Knicks' legendary run ended there, and the Spurs' legendary run was just beginning. In the years to come, however, one of the greatest comebacks would completely change the course of NBA history. Cavs 2016. In the 2016 NBA Finals, the Cleveland Cavaliers faced the Golden State Warriors, a team that had set an NBA record with a 73-9 regular season. After the first 3 games, the Warriors led the series 3-1 before this series. No team in NBA history had ever come back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals. The outside world had already declared the Warriors the champions and believed they would use this title to cement their status as the greatest regular season team ever. However, LeBron James and Kyrie Irving refused to let the story unfold as planned. With Draymond Green suspended and the Warriors dealing with some injuries, the Cavaliers found their window to strike back in Game 5. In Oakland for Game 5, James and Irving both exploded for 41 points, the first time in finals history that 2 teammates had scored 40-plus points in the same game. The Cavaliers won 112-97, taking the suspense back to Cleveland. In Game 6, James once again delivered a dominant performance at home with 41 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds, forcing a deciding Game 7. These 2 games didn't just change the score, they changed the psychological momentum. The Warriors' fluid offense began to stagnate, while the Cavaliers' defense found its rhythm. Game 7 was in the Warriors' home arena, and the score remained tight until the final minute. With 1:09 left, LeBron delivered the iconic chase-down block on Andre Iguodala, a defensive play that stopped the Warriors' final fast break opportunity. Moments later, Irving hit a clutch 3-pointer over Stephen Curry, extending the Cavaliers' lead to 3 points. When the final buzzer sounded, the score was 93-89, and the Cavaliers had completed the first ever 3-1 comeback in NBA Finals history. The 73-9 Warriors became a footnote as the greatest team without a title, and Cleveland finally celebrated its first championship in 52 years. On the podium, LeBron shouted, "Cleveland, this is for you." It was the ultimate upset for him, for the Cavaliers, and for the entire city. From the 1950s to today, these playoff upsets and comebacks are like impossible mountains that have been climbed time and time again. They prove that the charm of basketball lies not only in statistics and championships, but also in those moments when an underdog wins against all odds. Every upset is a reminder that until the final second, you should never give up, because you never know when the next legend will be born. If you want to dig into more of these stories hidden behind the scores with me, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon. That way, when the next earth-shattering NBA moment happens, we can witness it together.